Ottawa's 2024 Fall Economic Statement, released late December, revealed that the government's deficit exceeded its own projections by nearly $22 billion. One component of this unexpected overrun was $3.5 billion in estimated losses related to COVID-era financial support programs. Sam Forster from Canadian Affairs has covered the multi-billion-dollar loss and joined us to explain where questions remain.
As many Canadians are now aware, the fall economic statement showed a deficit for the 2023-2024 fiscal year that was roughly $21 billion larger than the $40 billion deficit that the government had pledged to be faithful to. Of that roughly 21 billion in new unforeseen deficit spending, 16.4 is allocated for contingent liabilities related to Indigenous lawsuit settlements. The remaining 4.7 billion is allocated for what the Department of Finance describes as adjustments for COVID-19 related support. That's the terminology they use in the fall economic statement. And there are basically two categories of adjustments. One of the categories is vaccine and therapeutic write-downs. So during the pandemic, the government spent a lot of money on medical interventions. And now that this inventory of product has expired, it's not worth anything. So this accounts for, again, 1.2 billion. The other category that remains is 3.5 billion for monetary COVID support, which can be further disaggregated into two categories, business and personal. So a portion of the 3.5 billion in COVID aid stems from loans provided to businesses during the pandemic under the Canada Emergency Business Account program, which was administered by Export Development Canada. CEBA recipients were able to qualify for partial loan forgiveness up to $20,000 if the non-forgivable principal of their CEBA loan was repaid on or before January 18th of last year. And according to the EDC, out of the $49 billion in CEBA loans distributed during the pandemic, 8.1 billion remains outstanding. Just over 100 million has been already written off. But the exact breakdown of how much of the 3.5 billion loss relates specifically to CEBA business loans is not information that the Department of Finance was either able or willing to provide when I reached out for comment. Now, during the pandemic, there were also individual support programs. So the other component of the COVID aid loss, again, that's that $3.5 billion, comes from estimated overpayments to individuals under programs for people uh, unable to work due to illness or caregiving responsibilities. Specifically here, we're talking about the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit, the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, and the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit. So these were programs that were more targeted than CERB, which is what I think most Canadians are familiar with as the most prominent of those individual support efforts that the government made. Now, these funds were dispersed as grants rather than loans, but while eligible disbursements under these programs are not expected to be repaid, overpayments to individuals are identified as recoverable to some extent by the government. However, again, details on the scale or success of recovering these overpayments are not especially clear. Employment and Social Development Canada did not respond to requests for comment, nor did the CRA provide specifics on how they were ensuring repayment. They said that they're using an approach that's firm but fair. Again, details were not provided to Canadian Affairs.